Commander Marcus Rivera regained consciousness to the sound of unfamiliar beeping. His body felt like it had been torn apart and reassembled, but that wasn't what caught his attention. It was the ethereal humming coming from somewhere above him. "The human's consciousness has returned," announced a melodic voice that seemed to echo inside his skull. "Remarkable recovery rate, considering the extent of cellular damage." Marcus forced his eyes open, meeting the gaze of a towering figure with crystalline skin that seemed to pulse with internal light. The alien, he assumed it was an alien, had 4 arms and eyes that shifted color like the aurora borealis. "How are you experiencing pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Asked another voice, belonging to a stockier alien with metallic scales and multiple appendages working on holographic displays. Marcus attempted to sit up, earning him a wave of protest from both aliens. "About a 4, he managed, his voice rough. "Had worse during basic training." The crystalline alien's skin flickered rapidly. "Impossible. Your thoracic cavity sustained severe trauma. 3 ribs are fractured and your left lung was partially collapsed." "Yeah," Marcus coughed out a laugh, immediately regretting it as pain shot through his chest. "Should have seen me after the Titan mining disaster. Now that was a bad day." The scaled alien's appendages froze mid-motion. "The Titan incident? That was you." "You've heard of it," Marcus raised an eyebrow. "We studied the report. No sentient being should have survived those conditions," the crystalline alien stated, its light patterns becoming erratic. "The pressure differential alone should have." "Killed me," Marcus finished. "Yeah, that's what the doc said too, but here I am." The aliens exchanged looks that Marcus recognized as universal concern. The scaled one began rapidly inputting data into its displays. "Your species continues to defy our understanding," the crystalline alien admitted. "When we received your distress signal from the damaged station, we expected to find casualties, not survivors." Marcus closed his eyes, remembering the chaos. The explosion, the emergency protocols, his team's evacuation. How many made it? "All 27 crew members survived," the scaled alien responded, sounding almost bewildered. "Though you sustained the most severe injuries while holding the bulkhead." Marcus felt relief wash over him. The pain seemed more distant now, knowing his people were safe. He noticed the alien studying him with increasing intensity. "You're not going to let me leave this med bay anytime soon, are you?" he asked, recognizing the familiar look of fascinated medical professionals. The crystalline alien's skin pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Not until we understand how your species can laugh in the face of what should be fatal trauma." Marcus grinned despite the pain. "Well, you better get comfortable then. It's going to be a long story." The crystalline alien, who had introduced itself as Zephyrval, moved a scanning device across Marcus's chest. Its partner, the scaled medical officer known as Craxt, studied the 3-dimensional holographic representation of Marcus's skeletal structure floating above their workstation. "Fascinating," Craxt muttered, manipulating the image with 3 of their appendages. "These old injury markers. They tell a story of repeated trauma and recovery. Look at this healed fracture pattern along the ribs." Marcus watched them work, amused by their growing excitement. "Found my souvenir from the Europa ice mining incident, didn't you?" Zephyrval's crystalline form flickered with intense blues. "You mean these compression fractures were sustained before the Titan event?" 2 years before, Marcus confirmed, shifting to find a more comfortable position. "Ice shelf collapsed. Spent 6 hours trapped under pressure before they dug me out. Medical team said I should have been crushed." The alien's diagnostic equipment suddenly emitted a series of urgent tones. Craxt's scales rippled with concern as they studied new data streaming across their screens. "Your neural scan is showing unusual patterns," Craxt announced, mandibles clicking rapidly, "specifically in areas associated with pain processing and stress response." Marcus shrugged, then winced at the movement. "Makes sense. Military training probably rewired some things up there." "Military?" Zephyrval's crystalline structure pulsed with new colors. "You were a combat operative before becoming a station commander." 15 years in the Terrestrial Defense Force, Marcus confirmed. "Specialized in extreme environment operations, the kind of missions where everything that can go wrong usually does." Craxt manipulated their holographic display, pulling up more detailed scans. Your body shows evidence of exposure to vacuum, extreme temperatures, high-pressure environments, and... They paused, mandibles twitching, projectile weapons. Remember that border skirmish on Mars? Marcus asked, watching recognition flicker across their alien features. I was there. Took 3 rounds to the chest when our hab got breached. Medical officer pulled me through, though she still gives me grief about it at reunions. The medical bay fell silent except for the steady hum of equipment. Both aliens stood perfectly still, processing this information. You survived a vacuum breach, Zephyrval began. While suffering multiple penetrating traumas, Craxt continued. On Mars, they finished in unison. Marcus couldn't help but laugh despite his injuries. Look, I know it sounds dramatic when you list it all out like that, but humans, we're built to endure. Every time we get knocked down, we learn something new about getting back up. Zephyrval's crystalline form shimmered with rapid pulses of light. The implications are staggering. Your species doesn't just survive these events, you adapt from them. Each trauma, instead of weakening you, becomes a lesson. Your cellular structure shows signs of accelerated healing, Craxt added, studying their readings. As if your body has optimized its recovery processes through repeated exposure to extreme conditions. That's not even the crazy part, Marcus said, his expression growing serious. Want to know what really makes humans different? We volunteer for this stuff. We see something dangerous that needs doing, and we step up anyway. The aliens exchanged glances, their respective physiologies displaying what Marcus had learned to read as deep concern mixed with fascination. Your current injuries, Zephyrval began cautiously. You sustained them protecting your crew. Marcus nodded. Structural integrity was failing. Someone had to hold that bulkhead while the evacuation finished. Simple math, 1 person at risk instead of 27. Simple, Craxt. The medical bay's tranquility shattered with the arrival of a delegation of alien officials. Their leader, a tall figure wrapped in iridescent robes with a crown-like neural interface, strode directly to Marcus's bed. Behind them, Zephyrval and Craxt shifted uncomfortably. I am High Counselor Nexus, the robed figure announced, their voice carrying harmonics that made Marcus's teeth vibrate. The medical reports about your species have caused considerable concern among the Galactic Assembly. Marcus propped himself up, ignoring the protest from his healing ribs. Didn't realize my medical records would cause a diplomatic incident. Your records? Nexus's neural interface flickered rapidly. Commander Rivera, we've accessed the entire human medical database. Your case is not unique. Your entire species demonstrates this alarming capacity for survival and adaptation. Oh, Marcus said, suddenly understanding the gravity of the situation. You're worried about us. The Assembly has questions, Nexus continued, their harmonics shifting to lower frequencies. How does a species evolve such resilience? What environmental pressures could forge such durability? Before Marcus could respond, a new alarm sounded. Craxt rushed to check the monitoring equipment, their scales shifting colors rapidly. The human's neural activity is spiking, they announced. But, their mandibles clicked in confusion, he appears to be laughing. Indeed, Marcus was chuckling, though each laugh sent waves of pain through his healing chest. Sorry, he managed, but you've got it backwards. We didn't evolve to be tough, we chose to be. The room fell silent. Even the ambient hum of medical equipment seemed to dim. Explain, Nexus demanded, their neural interface pulsing with intense patterns. Humans were never the strongest, fastest, or most durable species on Earth, Marcus began, his voice taking on the tone of a veteran sharing hard-won wisdom. But we were the most stubborn. When we couldn't outrun predators, we learned to outlast them. When we couldn't survive the cold, we made fire. When we couldn't fly, we built machines that could. Zephyrval's crystalline form shimmered with understanding. You engineered your own evolution. Not through genetics, Marcus clarified. Through sheer determination. Every time nature said you can't survive this, we said, watch us try. Every limitation became a challenge to overcome. Nexus's neural interface displayed patterns that Marcus couldn't interpret. This mindset, it explains the data we've collected, human settlements in impossible environments, exploration missions with minimal survival chances, rescue operations that defy logical risk assessment. The most remarkable aspect, Craxt interjected, their medical displays showing Marcus's current healing progress, is how they share this knowledge. Each survival story becomes a lesson, each recovery a blueprint for others. Which brings us to the Assembly's primary concern, Nexus stated, their harmonics carrying an edge of authority. Your species represents an unknown factor in galactic civilization, a race that actively seeks out and overcomes challenges that would destroy others. Marcus met the High Counselor's gaze steadily. You're not just worried about our ability to survive, you're worried about what we might do with it. The Assembly has proposed restrictions, Nexus confirmed. Limitations on human expansion, exploration, and technological development. The monitors registered another spike in Marcus's vital signs, but this time it wasn't from laughter. With all due respect, Counselor, trying to contain humanity would be your biggest mistake. Explain, Nexus demanded again, but their harmonics carried a note of curiosity. Because the same drive that helps us survive, Marcus said, his voice firm despite his injuries. It's the same drive that makes us protect others. Every time you find a human laughing off injuries, look closer. You'll probably find someone they were trying to save. The next day, Marcus found himself in a vast chamber that looked more like a holographic theater than a medical facility. Zephyrval and Kraxt stood nearby, while High Counselor Nexus observed from an elevated platform with a panel of alien scientists. Commander Rivera, Nexus's voice resonated through the chamber. The Assembly has authorized a series of simulations to verify your claims about human nature. Are you willing to participate? Marcus, now able to stand though his chest still ached, nodded. As long as you remember I'm still healing. The simulations will be entirely neural, Kraxt assured him, adjusting a sleek headset. Your physical form will remain untouched. The scenarios will be drawn from actual events in our database, Zephyrval explained, their crystalline form pulsing with subtle blues. We want to understand how a human would respond to various crisis situations. Marcus settled into the provided chair as they fitted the neural interface. You know, on Earth we have something similar. We call them video games. The aliens exchanged confused glances before activating the system. The chamber dissolved around Marcus, replaced by the interior of a damaged spacecraft. Warning lights flashed, and emergency sirens wailed. Scenario 1, announced an automated voice. Vessel carrying toxic materials is on collision course with a populated station. Automated systems have failed. Manual intervention required. Radiation levels lethal. Success chance, 12.8%. Marcus immediately moved to the controls, his military training kicking in. What's the alternative? Let it hit the station. That would be the logical choice, one of the observing scientists noted. Self-preservation dictates retreat in situations with minimal survival probability. Marcus's hands flew over the unfamiliar controls, plotting an intercept course. How many people on the station? Approximately 8,000, came the response. Then there's no choice to make, Marcus stated firmly, guiding the ship toward the tumbling toxic carrier. The simulation ended with a flash of white light. Scenario 2, the system announced. Underground colony experiencing catastrophic pressure loss, emergency shelters at capacity, remaining survivors trapped in Section 7, available rescue suits, 1. Again, Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed the suit but didn't put it on. Instead, he began modifying it, converting the oxygen system into a series of smaller emergency breathers. Fascinating, murmured one of the scientists. He's sacrificing his own protection to maximize survivor capacity. The simulations continued for hours. Crisis after crisis, impossible choice after impossible choice. In each scenario, Marcus demonstrated not just survival skills, but an unwavering commitment to protecting others, often at great personal risk. Finally, the chamber returned to normal. Marcus removed the neural interface, nodding the stunned expressions on the alien faces. I believe, Nexus spoke first, their harmonics carrying a new tone of respect. We may have misunderstood humanity's resilience. We saw it as a potential threat because we couldn't comprehend its purpose. The data is conclusive, one of the scientists announced. In every scenario, the human's first instinct was to protect others, even at extreme personal cost. This behavior pattern is consistent with Commander Rivera's medical history. It's not just about surviving, Marcus explained, standing despite his fatigue. It's about making sure others survive too. Humans push their limits because sometimes that's what it takes to save lives. Zephyrval approached, their crystalline form glowing with warm colors. Your injuries from the station incident. You knew holding that bulkhead would cause severe trauma. Of course I knew, Marcus replied. But I also knew my body could take it. That's what human resilience is really for, not just surviving, but making sure others get the chance to survive too. High Counselor Nexus descended from the observation platform, their neural interface displaying complex patterns. The assembly must be informed. This changes everything we assumed about human integration into galactic society. How so? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Because, Nexus replied, their harmonics resonating with newfound understanding. We've been asking the wrong question. The issue isn't whether humanity is too resilient to be safe. It's whether the galaxy can afford not to have such protectors among its civilizations. The medical facility's emergency alert system activated without warning, bathing everything in pulsing red light. Marcus, still recovering from the simulation tests, immediately noticed the change in his alien companion's demeanor. Zephyrval's crystalline form darkened to deep crimson, while Crax's scales bristled with agitation. Multiple distress signals detected, announced an automated voice. Quantum storm approaching, predicted impact in 47 minutes, standard containment protocols insufficient. High Counselor Nexus's neural interface flickered rapidly. Impossible, our sensors should have detected. The storm is artificially generated, Crax interrupted, their appendages flying over multiple holographic displays. Someone weaponized quantum fluctuations. The storm will tear apart our shield harmonics. Marcus pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the protest from his healing ribs. What are we looking at? Worst-case scenario. Total structural failure of the medical facility, Zephyrval responded, their voice carrying harmonics of fear. The quantum disruption will cascade through all 20 levels. We have 3,000 patients, most in critical condition. Evacuation protocols are initiating, Nexus announced, but our transport capabilities are limited. We cannot move everyone in time. Marcus studied the holographic displays, his military training kicking in. These quantum fluctuations, they follow patterns, right? Even artificial ones must have some predictability. Correct, Crax confirmed. But our shield technology cannot adapt quickly enough to— They stopped, mandibles clicking rapidly. You have an idea. On Earth, we used to surf hurricanes, Marcus said, moving to the central control interface. Not for fun, for rescue operations. You don't fight forces that big, you work with them. Zephyrval's form pulsed with confusion. Explain. Your shields are trying to block the quantum fluctuations, Marcus continued, studying the facility's systems. What if instead we ride them, use the energy to create safe corridors for evacuation? Impossible, one of the alien scientists protested. The calculations required would be— I can do it, Crax interrupted, their scales shifting to a determined blue. But I'll need direct neural interface with the shield grid. The feedback could be devastating. I'll help stabilize the interface, Zephyrval offered, their crystalline structure already adapting to link with Crax's neural pathways. And I'll coordinate the evacuation, Marcus added, then turned to Nexus. High Counselor, I need authorization to commandeer all available transport ships. Nexus studied him for a moment, their neural interface displaying complex patterns. You understand that if this fails, you'll likely die with us. Marcus grinned. Wouldn't be the first time I've beaten the odds. Besides, this is what humans do best: improvise, adapt, and protect. What followed was a symphony of coordination, unlike anything the medical facility had ever seen. Crax and Zephyrval, linked through their neural interfaces, began riding the quantum fluctuations, creating temporary safe zones that moved through the facility like waves. Marcus, drawing on years of extreme environment operations, directed evacuation teams through these corridors with military precision. Next wave in 3, 2, 1, Crax called out, their scales now glowing with the strain of maintaining the neural link. The entire facility shuddered as another quantum surge hit, but this time they were ready. Transport Group 7, move now, Marcus ordered through the comm system. Ride the wave to level 12, Group 8, prepare for the next window. Hours seemed to compress into minutes as they worked. The quantum storm grew stronger, but with each surge, they refined their technique. Craxt and Zephyrval learned to predict the fluctuations with increasing accuracy, while Marcus's evacuation teams moved with growing confidence through the shifting safe zones. Finally, as the last group of critical patients was loaded onto transports, Craxt's voice came through the calm, strained but triumphant. Final surge approaching, facility integrity at critical levels. Time to go, Marcus announced, but Nexus held up a hand. Wait, the High Counselor said, their neural interface pulsing with revelation. I understand now. This is what you meant about human resilience being protective. You didn't just survive this crisis, you taught us how to survive it too.